Hey, welcome to the October 10th, 2023 meeting of the USD 305 School Board. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, the first item we have tonight is approval of the agenda, and I would ask that we amend the agenda and add a section 8C regarding the KSB legislative priorities.
Mr. President.
I move that we approve the agenda as amended.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Mr. Grant seconds. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. We'll move now into the hearing regarding the enrollment of non-resident students. At the last board meeting, we received and discussed on first reading the board policy JBCC, enrollment of non-resident students. We are now ready to start the hearing on board policy JBCC. The notice and details of this hearing were published in the Salina Journal on September 18th, 2023 and September 25th, 2023, as well as on the USD 305 website. We will now open the hearing for the purpose of hearing testimony of taxpayers relating to the proposed policy. Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding that tonight? No one. We will move on to the next item in our agenda.
Mr. President, I can't stop myself from making a cynical comment. I'd still like to know what the fine folks in Topeka would do if we declined to have that hearing, but I know we can't do it, but I'm just curious about it.
I understand. Well, we've done our part at this point. So we will now move on to recognitions and presentations with Ms. Jennifer Kamian.
Evening. Tonight, we have a couple of You Make a Difference awards to announce. The staff members are nominated by colleagues to receive a You Make a Difference award for their support of students in the mission of Salina Public Schools. The Board of Education members surprise our recipients during their workday with a lapel pin and a handwritten note. Our first recipient, Randy Megg, Facility Manager at Meadowlark Ridge Elementary School. The pride Randy takes in his work is evident in every interaction he has with staff, students, and families. He goes above and beyond to make school a special place. Recently, when Randy saw a child choking in the lunchroom, he was the first to reach the child and give the Heimlich maneuver. His quick response prevented a tragic disaster. So we want to thank Randy for making a difference in that building. I'd also like to add that you may have noticed that Randy worked with us, the communications department and the HR department, to do a promotional video about our staff openings, and it is now being played at Salina Stadium. So on many fronts, thank you, Randy. Ivana Morton, fourth grade teacher at Huesner Elementary School. Ivana's caring personality uplifts her students and colleagues at Huesner. She is first to step up and fill a need, is Huesner's Stuco sponsor, and always has a smile and funny stories ready to share. Most of all, Ivana makes sure to check on others. She generously gives the gift of time and a listening ear. Thank you, Ivana, for making a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kamian. The next item on our agenda this evening is approval of the consent agenda items, to include the minutes of the September 12th, 2023 regular meeting, the minutes of the September 26th, 2023 special meeting, the personnel report, the financial reports, which include the September's bills list, the August treasurer's report, the August investment report, the August journal entries, to approve encumbrance listings, to Greenbush Educational Service Center in the amount of $27,000 for specialized learning services at CKCIE for the 2023-2024 school year. To contract Paper Group for the purchase of copy paper in the amount of $50,299.20. To JMH Cleaning for an additional amount of $120,000 for cleaning services to augment the district's custodial operations during the 2023-2024 school year. To approve CKCIE contract addendum with Presence Learning in the amount of $56,330.55 for speech therapy services for 32 additional students. And to approve the Heartland Site Structures bid to Ponton Construction in the amount of $98,378 for the Heartland Early Education Center and the Salina Education Center. This project is grant funded. And to approve the Crochet Club at Salina South High School. Is there a motion regarding the consent agenda?
Mr. President,
Mr. Grant?
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I have a motion. Is there a second? Ms. Casso seconds. Any discussion regarding the consent agenda? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. The next item on our agenda this evening is the public forum, and we've not had anyone request to speak at the public forum this evening. So we will move into the first item on our action agenda regarding the fiscal year 23 audit with Mr. Harold Mays. Mr. Mays? Welcome back to Salina.
Good evening. If you have the audit report in front of you, we'll jump in here. I'll touch on some highlights, and then if you have any questions, I can entertain those and try to answer those as well. On the report itself, there's basically 3 reports that are from the firm itself, and those are shown at the front on just before your statement 1, and then there are 2 in the back, one on governmental auditing standards and the other one on compliance testing. So the first report up front is on the financial statements, in which we state that the financial statements are fairly stated in accordance with the Kansas Municipal Accounting Audit Guide. So if you read through this, you're going to see that it says you're not in accordance with GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles, but that's what you opt out of each year when you make your resolution towards the first of the year to get to do statutory basis rather than GAAP basis. The second opinion that's back towards the back is governmental auditing standards, which are subject to because of the amount of federal funding that you receive. And under that particular report, we're basically telling you that it's a clean, unqualified opinion, which is a good, straight opinion. And then the third one, which is also back there, is an opinion on compliance testing. And because of the amount of federal funding that you receive, you're subject to what they call a single audit each year. And that means that we have to look at all the federal funding, we have to pick some programs, we have to do some detailed testing on those programs. And I'll talk about that in a little bit, but basically that opinion is also a clean or unmodified opinion based upon the compliance testing that we did. So if you look at page 4 and 5, which is statement 1, it's the summary of cash receipts and expenditures. It kind of gives you an overview of all of the funds. And if you look at the bottom of that page, your beginning unencumbered cash was $42,590,000, and your ending cash was $44,640,000. So you went up on your unencumbered cash. Most of that increase occurred because of increases in the Central Kansas Co-op, the health fund, the textbook rental fund, to some degree the bond and interest fund. The one fund that went down the most was the capital outlay fund. It went down about $1 million compared to the year before. So overall, you're good. You're in a good, sound financial cash position. One other thing is the federal grants, as they have in the last few years, shows a negative balance. Unfortunately, the way the federal government works is you spend the money and then they finally get around to paying you back. So your ESSER 3 fund is the biggest one that's got a deficit balance as of June 30th, and most of that probably has been collected by now too. So that's what That's what brought that to a negative 2,000,009 unencumbered cash balance. But again, that money comes in usually pretty quick. August, September, it's back in. If you turn to page 16, you get to look at what the state wants to look at in terms of compliance, and that is whether you're over budget on any fund, and you are not. All of your funds were either zero or at or below what the budget amount was. Therefore, the bracket amounts in that last column to the right is what you want to see, either a bracket amount or a zero. So that's good. Your general fund, which is on the next page, you're always work to get that one to zero, and you have it at zero, because if there's anything left over, the state reduces what you receive the next year by that amount, whatever that amount is at the bottom. So you always want to make sure that you get that one to zero, and you have. Supplemental general showed just a little bit of growth this year, about $5,000. And then you have all the other funds after that. I want you to go back to page 46 and 47, and this is your federal funding. And this federal funding consists of money that either comes straight from the federal government and or through another entity, generally the state, and then to you. And you had $24,772,390 worth of federal expenditures. So the state requires you to have an audit because of statutory basis or statutory laws. And then you're also required to have an audit because you're over $750,000 in federal expenditures. And you can see it covers a number of programs, the biggest one being the ESSER funds and the school nutrition is another one, big one for you, and so is your Head Start. So we get quite a bit of federal funding here. Due to that, like I said, we have a couple of reports in the back that basically cover that federal funding. And on both of them, as I alluded to earlier, we give a clean, unqualified opinion. We do a number of tests on those in terms of disbursements, in terms of the funds that come in, and in terms of just the compliance issues with those particular federal grants. And again, we didn't have any issues on that, so I'd like to commend your management staff for a job well done for the year. It's tough when you consider all the various funds that you have, and when you get into the federal funds, each one of those funds has a little different thing that it wants the money to be used for, that they have to track and keep it in line with what the federal government wants. So that's what I have. Any questions?
I just want to echo your thanks to Lisa and the team for the great work on this. I've sat up here for 4 years, and I know one of our primary obligations is to pay attention to the numbers, and numbers can be overwhelming, but it's a joy to hear positive reports from you, and you wouldn't have any way of knowing this, but a couple of weeks ago from people who help manage the bond process, and it's just, Lisa, thank you very much. It's good numbers.
Yeah. Thank you.
I would agree with that.
I'll take this time to thank Crystal Fowler-Sarna. She's the district accountant. She's sitting at the back of the building here, and she does all the work on getting things to the auditors. So I really appreciate her work. And the audit will be on our website, posted tomorrow.
Okay.
I think another thing that's important, that you covered it, but in a cursory note, we do have those encumbrance cash carryovers, but there's a lot of things we have to fund before we're reimbursed.
Right.
So things like payroll and those pieces, especially in the SPED areas, that if we didn't have some of those available, we wouldn't be able to do that.
And generally speaking, a negative cash would be a statutory violation, but because you have federal funding that's coming in, it's not considered a statutory violation. So,
Okay. Thank you. Is there a motion regarding the audit? Dr. Bandry?
I move we approve the audit for fiscal year 2023 as presented.
Okay, we've got a motion. Ms. Zimmerman seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is board policy with Ms. Erin Wright.
My apologies for the outburst just a minute ago. I have a very excited 12-year-old with her first band concert tonight, so I was getting some explosive texts. Apologies. At the last board meeting, as you stated earlier tonight, you'll recall that you had your first reading of Board Policy JBCC, Enrollment of Non-Resident Students. You had the hearing just a few minutes ago. And we have it back for you tonight for action consideration for the, this current school year. So you all have the packet in front of you. We did have one small change on page 4 in the bottom paragraph in the middle, though it was pointed out that the word resubmit a new application was redundant, so that has been changed to submit. But that is the only change since the last reading. Do you have any questions related to the policy?
I'd entertain a motion then. Ms. Zimmerman.
I move that we approve policy JBCC, enrollment of non-resident students, as presented.
A motion, is there a second? Mr. Gardner seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the KSB legislative priorities. This gives direction to our delegates regarding the delegate assembly. Is there a motion regarding the legislative priorities? Dr. Bander.
I move that we approve the KASB legislative priorities as presented and direct our delegate, Ms. Casso, to vote accordingly.
We have a motion, is there a second? Ms. Zimmerman seconds. Any discussion? Ms. Schamberger?
I didn't get a chance to read this, even though you said it was on emails, but so it might be really good, everything's there, but I was just saying that I might not be able to vote yea or, because I haven't read through it very well. Okay.
I know these things were covered at the legislative update as well, that we attended in Lindsborg. Several of us attended there.
Yeah, I did, yeah. It's pretty detailed here.
Yep. Okay. Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries 6-1. All right, we will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the discussion agenda, the 2023 summer school update with Ms. Craddock-Dyson.
Hello. So I feel like mine is really exciting information that we have here to share with you. During the 2023 summer school, we were approximately able to serve 1,000 students this past year, which was right in line with about the same number of students from the year before. We had one high school site over at South High School that served both our middle school and high school students. We had 2 elementary locations, Cottonwood and Sunset, and each one of those locations had a preschool classroom.
And so that was something new this year as well, that we were able to have a preschool in both sites. We were able to have smaller class sizes this year, 13 compared to 15 from the year before. We were able to have a licensed social worker at all locations, which that was something new for us. We had not had one at the middle school before, and so that was new. And we were able to provide food resources from the summer lunch program and through the food bank to our students and families. For busing, we had another celebration this year for the preschool to 12th grade, where what we covered for busing needs, but this was the first year for preschool busing, and they were able to pick up our students from their house, which was really exciting. And Central Kansas Mental Health Center was able to do groups at all of our centers as well. For the elementary highlights, we were able to service 473 students. That was down from the previous year, about 100 students, but we made up for that kind of in the secondary level. And so that's why our numbers were still pretty comparable from the year before. As you see there, we had 91% of our elementary students who enrolled completed the program, and 82% of those students attended for both reading and math. We were interested in the numbers for the busing just because we were able to provide busing for the preschool students. And so once we took a look at that at the end of the year, we saw that 60% of our preschool families did take advantage of busing. And so made sure our littles were there every day. And then just from that information we looked, and for our K-5 students, we saw that 43% of our families used the bus service as well. On to the skills that were taught during summer school. There were lots of engaging lessons that we had this past summer. Lots of standards were covered during summer school to cover some of those standards that students needed some additional help with. Students had opportunities to read great books by authors that they love, such as books by Mo Williams and Esperanza Rising. They engaged in hands-on math activities that supported all learners. Kindergarten got to do some fun bowling through the subtraction. And as noted on the slide, reading comprehension, vocabulary, and fact fluency was a focus for all of the grade levels. For our performance measure, we used the BAS to measure our reading growth, and we had 73% of our students who maintained or showed growth when we compared scores from spring of 23 to fall of 23. And our math measurement was with the iReady reading diagnostic, and we had an 85% that showed either who maintained or showed growth. And all of our preschool students did maintain or showed growth, and they used an assessment that many of our preschool teachers already use in the district. We were able to survey students, parents, and staff at the elementary and middle school levels. And from our survey, we were able to find out that 83% of our students felt like the work that they did helped them grow in math and reading. And 89% of our elementary students felt that their teacher helped them learn new skills. And it was really fun to go through and read the comments that the students wrote on there. And one that just kind of caught my eye when I was making this was, the lunch is pretty good and I made some new friends. For the parent survey, 95% of our parents felt positive about summer school, and would sign their students up again if their students qualified. And 100% of of the parents felt that summer school was beneficial for their student. Again, another comment was, my child was often eager to go to summer school. It was fun for her. One of the things that we did learn from this survey is that we did a great job of communicating before summer school started, but once summer school started, that's something that we'll focus on for this next year, is adding more pieces out to our family. So the survey really helped us look at things that were going well and things that we can also improve on for this next school year. The staff survey, 100% of our elementary staff felt like they were heard, understood, and respected, and 100% of them also said that they felt supported throughout summer school. And I loved this quote from one of the surveys: having the instructional assistance support was helpful. They were awesome. And we were able to have a lot of instructional support, and they were awesome in the classrooms and with our students. Some additional celebrations were that there was an increase of performance pennies that were given out to students, and both of our directors talked often about the positive behaviors and leadership skills that our students exhibited during summer school. We also had an increased enrichment through community partnerships, and the one I want to point out there that was really nice for us to partner with was AmeriCorps Senior Program, and we had foster grandparents actually at each of our buildings, even at the secondary level. Again, Salina Public Schools was able to provide books for our students to keep this year, and Salina Food Bank provided 250 food boxes. And of that 250, most of them were given out to elementary students, but we did include secondary in that as well this year. For middle school, we were able to service 148 students, which is, I believe, 78 more students than we did the year before. So we got an increase compared to 22. And 75% of those students completed the program, and 100% of those students attended for both reading and math. Some of the reasons that were given for not completing the program were that students just stopped attending. For student growth, we used measures in the classroom, such as teacher-made assessments for reading and for math. And we had a 75% of our sixth graders maintained or showed growth in reading and math, 40% at seventh grade, and 41% at eighth grade. Here's just some of the examples of, again, those skills and standards that were taught during middle school. So again, they were able to read some great novels and do some fun projects. And math, you see, they started with like some multiplication and went all the way up to solving equations by square roots. So overall, 55% of our middle school students maintain or showed growth in reading and math. Celebrations. The year before, in 2022, the focus was on social emotional, so we were able to get more direct instruction for reading and math into the middle school. We still did have daily emotional, social emotional instruction, and again, that was the first year that we had the social worker there. She was able to go in and provide lessons in the classrooms and work one-on-one with students. 63% of the students surveyed reported that they agreed or strongly agreed that the work that they did in summer school helped them improve their reading and math skills. And 60% of the parents agreed or strongly agreed that summer school was beneficial for their child. For high school highlights, we were able to serve 405 students. Credit recovery, 395 total half credits were earned. Enrichment classes, 45 total half credits earned. For driver's ed, 112 permits were earned. And for the ACT prep, we had 34 students who participated. For the credit recovery, that 395 shows an increase of 53 more half credits that were earned. For the for the enrichment courses, the 45, that is, shows that 30 more half credits were earned there. And the difference for that was the metals course that was added this past year, metals A and B. For celebrations, we had an 86% completion rate for credit recovery courses. 83 more credits were earned compared to 2022. 97% completion rate for enrichment courses, and 231 students earned at least one credit. When asked, Mrs. DeVoe talked about the flexibility of the staff is really what allowed for the success and the high completion rate this past year. And some students were able to work on one or two courses while others completed a course one at a time. We will come back at a later time with a proposal for the 2024 summer school plan. Are there any questions?
Not necessarily a question, but just, I hope we could express thanks to everybody that participated. It's the numbers, the results seem really positive, and it's just a testimony to keep on offering such things, as far as I can tell.
And none of this would have been possible without our directors who are here today to do the work. Thank you. Go ahead.
I have a quick question. So when you said they stopped attending, what's our procedure if somebody just stops showing up?
We called, we made phone calls.
Okay.
We had that social worker reach out to families, trying to get them engaged again to come back. From some of the surveys that were filled out, some of the families decided to get tutors to complete those. Some parents said that they were going to start doing the work at home with their students. So there were like additional reasons kind of provided from those surveys.
Okay, and I was just going to tell you, from what I've heard out in the community, people were very pleased with what you did, so well done.
Thank you.
I might ask real quick, as you're going through some of the numbers there,
Yes.
the growth rates, things like that, have we tracked that in previous years, or is that a new tracking this year?
It's new tracking for this year.
New tracking, okay.
We were able to do the BAS. We had those scores from years before, but not the iReady scores.
Okay.
That was one of the things that you requested last year when we presented. You said that you would like to see some of that tracking data, and so Jody and her team have worked really hard, the directors, making sure they're working with teachers to identify how we can look at that data. And then we have some ideas to try for next year to kind of hone in a little bit more on those specific skills that they worked on in the summer.
Good deal. I appreciate that.
I guess I have one question. One of the last slides said that this many half credits, but the students, this many earned one credit. So is one credit 2 half credits, or is one credit just 1 half credit?
That, Krista?
I think it would be a
Half credit. Okay.
Oh, okay,
Sorry,
thank you.
my experiences with elementary, so the credit's still trying to get a hold of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your work on that. Yeah, and I agree. As we baseline and monitor, I think we can get better all the time. So, thank you.
Yeah, we're excited to be able to bring you that additional information next year.
Good. Next item on our agenda this evening is graduation requirements with Dr. Stevens.
Good evening. Last time I was here on graduation requirements, you'll recall back in January. And at that meeting, we looked at a variety of different options for our school district to consider. And it was requested of me to go and talk to teachers, kind of get some feedback. So the document that is in the board packet titled Graduation Requirement Proposal, if you want to open that up and look at it, the specific areas after having that feedback and going out and talking with teachers, talking with counselors, administrators, really what we're looking at is the gray areas of this document. And I'm colorblind, so I use a lot of black, white, and gray. That keeps me out of trouble with reds and greens. So, but as you can see on the STEM elective, kind of looking these over, and we'll go change by change. Essentially what this would do would be change our computer requirement that we currently have to a STEM elective. And with that, by changing this requirement from a computer elective to a STEM required elective, students would gain more options instead of maybe just selecting a few of the computer classes. So they would have more options to select courses that align with their individual plan of study. And you probably heard individual plan of study in previous presentations that I've given. This is becoming more and more important as we move forward. And really the genesis of this STEM elective is to allow students to have choices that align with intentionality in their individual plan of study. So that would be one change. The second list there, listed item, financial literacy, really is memorializing what we've already done. From my records, this district, I believe in 2016, added financial literacy, and we've had it there. Now it's a state requirement for graduation, so we're just kind of formally bringing attention to that. The third change is the electives, and if you'll note, right now in our current system, students have quite a bit of range on what they can select for those electives, and really what the state is wanting us to do is to bring more focus and intentionality into course selections that align with the student's individual plan of study. The genesis of this idea, went back and was tracking some of the task force meetings that the state had with different representatives, is that research shows overwhelmingly for students to buy into school if they see the relevance in the coursework they're doing and they see how that can apply to future careers. So when they looked at research, they noticed that improves attendance, that improves academic achievement. It also improves students on the schools that were studied across the nation on academic tests, but more importantly, their completion of high school. In some cases, increasing their graduation rate as much as 20% for some of the impoverished schools that they've studied. So the individual plan of study, this isn't just a dream that the state kind of threw out there as an initiative. They're really trying to target intentionality in our course selection. So our electives would go from being 6.5 to requiring 4.5 of those, otherwise what would be open electives, to align with the student's individual plan of study. There are a lot of questions from the state in working with Jay Scott and having conversations with administrators across the state to clarify what's the definition of alignment, what are some of these items that the state has given and more clarification on specific courses. But in general, these would be the three highlighted changes on the course requirements. The last update or new state requirement is this notion of post-secondary assets. And because this district has taken a lot of progressive action in the last 4 years, when you think about what we've done with partnerships, the board approving a lot of the language in our student handbooks with individual plans of study being required before internships, work-based experiences, et cetera, are put in place, and the building bridges, a lot of these different items that we're working and engaging our community for more partnerships. This part is a little bit easier, but there's still some unknown pieces, so I want to walk you briefly through that. Students are required to meet 2 or more post-secondary assets from either the academic or career and real-world categories. The selected assets must align with the student's IPS, so meaning that a student could take 2 from the academic category, or they could take 2 from career and real-world category, or they could take 1 from each. The intentionality of this with the state is to really get students looking beyond just classrooms, but also utilizing different avenues for that student to find success. So the way they're kind of clustered together under the academic category, think about the 9+ college hours, completing Kansas Scholars curriculum, so like 4 years of science, taking a second foreign language would fall under that. And then there's the achievement types of academic category items that would be post-secondary assets, such as state assessment 3 or 4 on a math, ELA, or science, advanced placement exams, work keys, ACT composite score of 21, SAT of 1200 or higher. And then there's an ASVAB per requirement of military branches, another option. Under the career and real world category, this is an area that is still a little bit open. The state is working to pull together additional task force members to bring some clarification on some of these items. But in general, if you look at it, 2 or more high school athletic activities. So there were some questions in the task force meetings about, okay, do all activities count? Do they have to be in it 2 years or more? So there's some more clarification that's coming from that. 40 or more community service hours, 90% attendance in high school. And then in the second group, this is where we're really seeing the need and the work that Building Bridges is doing. Building Bridges will be meeting this year on November 9th, working with manufacturers across the community to get our students opportunities for client-centered projects, apprenticeships, workplace learning experiences that directly relate to the student's individual plan of study. Senior projects and a senior exit interview has been listed, but there hasn't been criteria from the state to really unpack that. And then the last group, really the industry recognized credentials. So your CTE Scholar, your Seal of Biliteracy, if a student got a CNA, CMA, welding certificate, those would count. And 2 of them that are also listed there for students involved in Scouts, the Eagle Scout or Gold Scout Award, and the 4-H Kansas Key Award. And both of those, if anybody's been through that, are quite an accomplishment in of itself. But looking through this, I want to reiterate with the teachers when we had conversations, we were really trying to make sure that we allowed students to have enough flexibility for those that want to explore, because we know that that's certainly a possibility that students haven't always picked what they want to do in high school. So on the exploration individual plan of study, as long as that's noted in the individual plan of study, that would align. Again, just bringing some intentionality to it. We are also looking at courses that for STEM electives would allow those students to have access to technical and application courses, and then much part is the intentionality of the state asking us to move that direction. But finally, as I look across the things that the district has done, we really are in a good place in Salina. And just a few highlights here. The 2014 bond project, allowing us to bring career and technical education coursework into our high schools. Again, the 2016 financial literacy approval. Beginning in 2020, both high schools have an IPS or individual plan of study advisory council that they are able to kind of stay on the cutting edge of the initiative. 2021, the partnerships. I can't speak enough to the college post-secondary opportunities with Bethany College, Kansas State, Salina Area Tech. Those continue to help our students earn those credits, which will be applied to that academic post-secondary asset. And then, of course, just looking at the intentionality in our handbooks and ensuring that the individual plan of study does become a part of our daily operation. For anybody listening at home, I guess what I would say to this is the individual plan of study is here. It's going to guide much of the graduation requirements across what Kansas is working on. But rather than looking at that as a requirement, the intentionality comes from that genesis of the fact that research shows it helps bring relevance to our students and what they're doing in planning. So those are kind of a highlight of the changes. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than willing to answer any of them now.
I'm curious about Opportunity Now. Do they just go on their IEPs or are they held to this similar standard here?
So according to the state statute, all students in the state of Kansas are required to have an individual plan of study. There are some areas where that would overlap, and of course, because it's individualized education plan, that would be a little bit different, and maybe what it looks like and possibly more targeted because no IEP is the same. But in terms of the, there hasn't been a delineation from the state that is a separate type of requirement, but in an IEP, they can customize it for that student. And the individual plan of study is still a part of that process when you're looking at, depending on the IEP again, vocational training, things that come after high school. So there's still a requirement for those students, but it may look a little bit different.
To clarify that, So some of those courses may be modified in order to meet the student's IEP needs, but they would still have to get 4 English language arts credits and a financial literacy credit and the 3 math credits. So that piece is the same. The content of the course may be adjusted based upon that IEP.
Any IEP that exists, a parent is made aware that they are receiving a modified curriculum.
I know we talked about it in January, but I just want,
And there's introductory classes into that pathway. Technical moves into harder classes, and then applications like cabinet making 2, cabinet making 3 would be a capstone class. So I think some concern that came up was just ensuring that students aren't funneled into a pathway and then not able to get an application course with enrollment trends and those kind of things. So the technical and the application courses open it up much broader so that students will have access to still have that component of exploration. Another item, we didn't highlight ELA. We talked to ELA teachers. They were adamant with the 4 credits. A couple of them had asked some questions about being able, if there was consideration in the future to go to 3.5, which they weren't necessarily in support of, they would still want a 0.5 credit that maybe is an elective. And so obviously that can be kind of challenging with staffing and resources and making it, but at this point they still believe that it should be 4 credits and that the communications remain a 0.5. So taking some of the input, that's what really guided these highlighted changes that we listed. On financial literacy, another conversation that emerged was, many of our students are making extremely important financial decisions when they're sophomores and juniors. And so making sure that students have access to that class, if it fits, again, their individual plan of study, to take it as a sophomore versus a junior or a senior. Typically, many have taken it their senior year. So what you're really starting to see is there is this kind of old system of when you're a freshman, this is what you take. When you're a sophomore, this is what you're taking. But there's all kinds of different needs students we need to consider when we're customizing their schedule. And a student, for example, that wants to take a college level class, they have to, in the state of Kansas, if they're not gifted, they have to take it their 10th grade through 12th grade year. But a gifted student may be able to take a college class that freshman year. So also you have some students that are wanting to go to a Division I school, a Division II school, and there's different requirements. Beyond college, though, we have so many opportunities right now for our students to look into careers directly after high school. And so if there's one thing that sticks out in my mind among all of this is there is no such thing as a cookie cutter, this is what your high school career is going to look like. And it's requiring a lot more conversations. It's requiring us to utilize Zello for career interests to make sure students are taking those as seriously as they can so that our counselors, our parents, our teachers who are working with students can advise them the best they can. Those were kind of the highlights of the conversations. Many great conversations, spoke with ELA, industrial arts, business, counselors, administrators, especially the individuals that the gray areas are going to impact.
that's great, thank you. I appreciate your emphasis on financial literacy there too. As a person who spends part of every day doing college financial aid advising, there's a lot of families, not necessarily from Salina, but a lot of families aren't prepared for those discussions. So it's a continuing, ongoing, important topic. No matter whether you're going to college or where, you got to be prepared financially. So appreciate you highlighting that amongst things there.
I have a question, Dr. Stevens, just kind of application-wise to take this out and put it into a perspective I might understand better. As I'm looking at this, if we had a student who, say, was in welding and they were active in band also, how would the elective piece affect them? How would those 4.5, would those 4.5 allow them to take band throughout their high school career and things like that?
Well, yeah, and I didn't list this in the progressive measures this board has made, but one of the items with our high school that allows that is we have 8 periods. So a student does have more flexibility to take that. I have 2 daughters that are going to take band because they're twirlers, but they love band. You have to be in band too to be a twirler, so it works together. But when you think of band, that it's a valuable course, obviously fine arts, but it also, being that it's a scheduled class every year, another one for our athletes that want to do conditioning every year. So if you think about it, when we had 7 times 4 years, that would be 28 credits. Now we have 32. What I do believe these new electives and this alignment piece with IPS is going to help with that, though, is bring intentionality to it. So a student still has room in their schedule to find the electives that they want. And I would even argue, even without the state requirement, they still have opportunities to explore and take classes that maybe don't align. Because remember, not all electives do have to align, just the ones that 4.5 of those. And since we're no longer doing 28 credits, we're doing 32. If they pass everything, they've got a lot of give in their schedule. So that doesn't worry me as much.
Okay. The other question I had, and this may align with Ms. Zimmerman's question earlier, we talked about Salina Adult Ed and our completion programs and things like that. Do we run into modifications and stuff to get completion for those students?
Well, for one, on the requirements, they, once their cohort graduates, on the total credits, they drop to 21 credits in the adult education program. And so there's already just on the number of credits that are there, but, and I've been out to the Adult Ed Center very few times, but in talking with Kelly, because of that smaller environment already, the work that they do to help adults, I don't know that there's not specifically an IEP for adults on that, but there is a lot of adjusting and accommodation to work with the adult learners that come back. But one of them overall, though, is that they're at a 21 on credit requirements versus the 24 that our high school traditional students would have.
Going through the GED program so there's 2 routes at Salina Adult Ed Center. One route is to go ahead and finish the diploma through the diploma completion program, which means they'll get either a South or a Central diploma by finishing that 21 credits, okay? The other way is to go ahead and test and take the GED, and they can earn a state of Kansas diploma by taking the GED. So what the Adult Ed Center does is they look at where the student is progress-wise toward that 21 credits, and then they counsel them on which is the best route for them, which is going to provide them the most support and chance for success so that they can move on into their adult life.
Question. On the new state requirement about the academic category and career and real world, who's going to be tracking that? Counselors?
Yeah, they'll be integral to that. And the other piece, and this is a question that's come up with the state, and so what was communicated, and I'll give you directly what they had indicated on their PowerPoint, is they are working on utilizing an information database that will be rolled out as details are evolving. So, but what I will say to this is, and as a parent, this is a partnership. This is going to be all hands on deck as a student, taking ownership of this, having a counselor, having conversations. We're going to see a need, not only in this district, but across the state, to have more substantial conversations that go beyond just grades. They talk about where are we going, what do we want to do, and how we can leverage the tremendous amount of opportunities right here in Salina that we have. So that will be everybody's requirement and expectation. In Zello, the student does have the place where they can go in, they can update, this is my experience, whether it was babysitting, whether it was working in an internship, volunteering. This weekend, for example, Salina Fall Fix Up, and get my plug in there if anybody wants to help. They're in need of a lot of hands. If my daughter went and helped with that, we would be adding that into Zello. In our ELO classes or advisory, there are activities scheduled for them to go in and update that information. So it's going to be everybody's, but ultimately the state believes they will have some kind of system that will help us. It may very well end up that we have to add kind of a data query into our Skyward, and they manage it from there, but it's going to take everybody's eyes and help.
I know this is on the discussion agenda. Is there any reason to entertain moving it to the action? Do you need value of getting it done quicker, or is next month okay?
Because this is graduation requirements and there's a lot of weight to this, I will yield to the board on that. I know on textbook adoptions, when we're trying to get them ordered and that kind of thing, it's a lot of money and all that. But this is something that, I think is okay to have it out there to maybe, if you feel like you need to get more information or have conversations with. And it's wide-reaching. This will be starting with the class of 2028. Because of that, I'll leave it up to the board. If you feel you have enough information, that what we will work with it no matter what. And we're updating our enrollment guide. Our eighth grade career and life classes will pre-enroll in December. So it's not like right away. But this is one that I really want you to give consideration and think through what you feel like you need to, but I do appreciate you asking that question. So if the board decides to do it, obviously it's up to you. So,
Any other questions for Dr. Stevens or comments? Okay, thank you, Dr.
okay,
Stevens.
thank you.
All right, so the next item on our agenda is school board reports. And of course, updating dates of importance, November 10th through the 12th. We do have the KSB conference in Wichita. I know many of us will be attending that. Ms. Zimmerman, we'll start with you.
Thank you. Let me find my notes just a minute. Well, I attended the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. There's been lots of progress on the Oakdale pickleball courts and the bathrooms at the tennis complex. The pond is gone at the Jerry Ivy Park and filled in and seeded with new grass, and it will be replaced soon with a waterfall type feature somewhere else in the park. Just today I presented a You Make a Difference Award, the one to Ms. Morton, fourth grade teacher at Huesner, and we surprised her, and she got a lot of applause from her students and a photo with her whole class. I did attend the 20th anniversary marathon event at Salina Stadium, and that was a lot of fun. I walked several laps with a fourth grader from Cottonwood and learned some Filipino words and all about her life, and it was really fun. I attended the Women Elected to Lead event in Hutchinson, sponsored by Kansas Association of School Boards, and we heard from many legislators and met a lot of school board elected women. It was interesting. I guess a bunch of us have been completing a bunch of candidate questionnaires and had one candidate forum with the Granny Brigade, and there's one coming up on Sunday at Sunrise Presbyterian Church, sponsored by the League of Women Voters, where we all sit at different tables with the audience at the tables with us, and every 10 minutes, the candidates each switch to a new table, so you get up close and personal with all the candidates. I think that's all. Thank you.
Dr. Bender?
I appreciate Ann mentioning the rapidly approaching opportunity to vote. And just a friendly reminder for everybody that November 7th is a date to vote, and spread your word. So whoever you choose to vote for, vote. Don't ignore things, because it's important. So appreciate that. And like Ann, I've spent a lot of time filling out surveys. This is the third election cycle in a row I've run for something, and the amount of things to turn in this time is much more than it was previous. So I think that's good. People are paying attention. And it's also interesting that more of it's coming statewide as opposed to just local. So it's interesting where people are looking. I attended the Smoky Hill Ed Service Center board meeting back on September 14th. The next one is Thursday of this week, and I would say things are going well there overall. As I've said a couple of times along the way, they, like us, are sometimes struggle to find a number of applicants for positions, but things are moving along, I think, overall there. I was invited, as I suspect many of you were as well, to help at Salina South with the medical internship classes mock interviews. I was able to do that on September 22nd and October 6th, and it's just such a joy. I mean, this time around I've met 8 young ladies, all of whom want to return to the community in some way to help in medical fields, some nursing, some dental hygienists, some neuropsychology, and boy, they did a great job. It's neat to sit there with other members of the community that are helping in this way, and should you ever get the chance, it's just neat to be in that setting. And I always tell the young people in these settings that, hey, I'm here on behalf of the school board, but it's neat to talk to students as opposed to just the board. No offense to those here, but it's fun to talk to the students. So I want to highlight that. Somehow or another, through COVID and all this time, I have not been able to get to many athletic events in Salina, but I went on last Thursday to watch Salina South host maize in soccer, and that was fun too. Many of you know my son was on that field for a long time, and there were some younger siblings, younger cousins out there. That was fun, and emailed with Coach Crow afterwards about how well it went, and so exciting to see the folks in action. And going back to when we had our listening session recently with the athletic directors, I tried to sit there in the stadium and pay attention to what it might look like with a really full stands, and if we had the building that Coach Stewart dreamed about on the south end of the complex there, just trying to visualize that. So it was a neat opportunity, I think. Likely I'm forgetting something, but that's enough for now.
Well, I did go to the Central Homecoming football game with my 4-year-old grandson, who was excited and jumped around and yelled a lot. And then I went to the Parks and Rec board meeting, which Ann gave you a synopsis of what happened there.
Mr. Grant?
I attended the CKCIE Board of Control meeting. I don't think any big updates from that, just lots of staff movements here and changes at the beginning of the school year. That was back in September. We're fully in the school year now, though, so.
Good. Ms. Casso?
I attended my first Smoky Hill meeting, so I'm a newbie, so I don't really understand what all we did, but I'm catching on. Just FYI, I did not attend the forum. I have not been getting anybody's emails, so if you're trying to reach me, please contact Deborah, and she knows how to get me by phone. We're trying to figure out my email that is not working with USD 305. So I did miss that, but I'll be there this Saturday. And then I watched Lynn, is it Testify? Testify in Topeka, and I'm always proud of you for what you do, and thank you for being so well spoken. But that was really interesting to watch. So good job.
Mr. Gardner?
I think everything is on Sunday at 1.
What?
That's at 3?
3.
Sunday. You said Saturday.
Oh, I'm sorry. 3. Thank you.
I want to make sure you're there.
Yes, thank you for looking out for me. I appreciate it.
So we've been filling out a lot of questionnaires. My only request is, can we please change some of the questions? Everybody's asking the exact same question over and over again, and you try to become inventive in the way that you answer so that it appears to be different but comes across as the same message, but it is. I'm not that smart. I'm sorry. So did that, and then naturally I've been attending the football games. So it's been good.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. I attended the chamber meeting, and I guess a couple notes that I had from there. You know, the arts have really grown here in Salina. Just had Boom Salina, a lot of partnership there, a lot of really neat things going on. But talking about the things drawing people to Salina, one of the things that was brought up was all the activity in the tennis courts downtown. And I think it's important to note that Ryan Stewart, our AD at South High, was very involved with facilitating that and working through those things. And that was there was a lot of comments made at the chamber meeting, and I think it's fair to give recognition for that and the impact that USD 305 and the staff not only has on students but also the economy and helping to drive those things in Salina. I got to deliver the You Make a Difference Award to Randy, who we heard about earlier, and what a unique thing. I mean, the impact that staff has with students, but what a special one there. That was great. So, Ms. Exline, we'll go to you for superintendent's report.
Okay, I have quite a few things to just update you on tonight. First, I want to introduce Paul Minching. Paul is our new Executive Director of Operations, and so he has been really, really great to work with, and we're just so happy to have him. Hearing lots of positive from staff out in the buildings that he works with, and so I just want make sure you take a minute to say hello to Paul. I wanted you to know that we had 2 days of visible learning training last week. We had building leadership teams actually work through what evidence that they should collect to try to figure out where does each building start with this work. And so it felt really respectful because not everybody will start at the same place. And the whole purpose is for us to figure out, okay, where are we in relationship to those attributes that we want students to have? And then where do we start to begin building those depending on that baseline in each individual building. So that was really good. Thank you to Shanna and her team for facilitating that conversation. We actually had Karen Flores that worked with you as a board. So, and she's just excellent. Jennifer's office has been busy working on awards, and we were able to honor the new Teachers of the Year, Michael Hall at Central High School and Kelsey Wood at Cottonwood. So that was fun. I always enjoy going out and experiencing that. Wanted you to know that Jeff Hayes is getting ready with his team to do some paraprofessional training this Friday. That is something that we added as a way to try to support our paraprofessionals. They're just so critical to what's happening in our classrooms. And he said this morning that he has over 120 people coming. Is that correct? Okay. So Curtis mentioned, Dr. Stevens mentioned that he does have that Building Bridges event planned for November 9th. That will be in the evening, and it will be at the Stiefel Theater. And that'll be an opportunity for us to engage in conversations about partnerships across Salina. And so those partnerships are critically important to giving our students the opportunities that they're going to need to meet those new graduation requirements. And so that'll be instrumental, and we'll have to share that information with our community partners at that time. Wanted you to know that Lisa Peters and I have already started our annual site council presentations. And so we are on the circuit. It is riveting. And we will be meeting with every building site council, and we'll provide performance data, we'll provide financial data, enrollment data, and we will actually be giving that information to you as you requested last year here relatively soon at a meeting. I was invited to be part of the State Superintendent Advisory Council. Dr. Watson has a small group of superintendents that serve on his advisory council, and so I received that invitation this week, and so I've accepted that because that'll be a really good learning experience for me, so I'm pleased about that. I do want to acknowledge Jody Eislin and the work that she has been doing on chronic absenteeism. We got a shout out today, evidently at the Kansas State board meeting. I got an email from Aaron Wright saying that that Dr. Watson had acknowledged the incredible improvement that we had in chronic absenteeism, and that he shared a little bit even about what we had been doing. And I had Jody share that with a group of superintendent leaders one day, and so evidently somehow word got to Dr. Watson. So that was kind of neat to hear USD 305 highlighted, because that is something where we've been working so hard, and we did have a lot of growth to do. And then today, a group of superintendents invited our local representatives to go to lunch and to engage in conversation about the best way to communicate with them, what information is helpful to them. And I was really pleased that Representative Clark Sanders and Representative Stephen Howe both joined us for lunch. We also had Senator Ty Masterson out from West joining us as well. We talked extensively about the out-of-district transfer policy that you approved today and the challenges that we're facing, and we were just asking, some clarifications on that. We talked about the FAFSA and the movement to maybe encourage or require students to do that, and they were asking for our input on that as well. So good conversation, and I really appreciated that our two people were willing to come and engage in that dialogue with us, and that they are so open to communication back and forth as they're in Topeka. So.
Thank you, Superintendent. Excellent. Of course, we have the Heartland Early Education Update, which is part of our packet. The next item we have, though, is executive session. We've got attorney-client privilege for attorney-client, and do we think we need, how much time? Ms. Wright stepped out.
I'd say 20 minutes.
20 minutes, okay? If we could get a motion for 20 minutes. Ms. Zimmerman.
I move that the Board of Education go into executive session at 6:45. How about that? For 20 minutes for the purpose of consultation with board legal counsel on matters which are privileged in the attorney-client relationship, which if discussed in open session would waive that privilege, and that the Board of Education reconvene into open session at 7:05 in the SEC room.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Ms. Cosso seconds. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. We will be in executive session.
Go into an executive session at 7:07 for 5 minutes for the purpose of consultation with board legal counsel on matters which are privileged in the attorney-client relationship, which if discussed in open session would waive that privilege, and the Board of Education reconvene into open session at, what did I say, 7:12 in the SEC room.
Motion, is there a second? Ms. Cusso seconds. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 4-0. We'll be back in executive session. are back from executive session, and there is no action, so I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Ms. Schamberger? Ms. Zimmerman, all in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. We will be adjourned.